Hello there. I just want to talk about this painting quickly. I've just came down to my gallery, and even though it's at night, I just thought I just need to talk about it. Let's have a look at it. So this is a 4 foot, what is it, 120 by 40 centimeter uh, canvas, oil on canvas. You can see the sort of size of it there on the mantelpiece, and so I tend to work in these 3-to-1 proportions. I really love them. This panoramic proportion. It just kind of makes sense to me, really, because we have two eyes and we kind of see, you know, life in this way. I think, and this painting is part of a series I've done called Midsummer on Eggardon Hill. And it's basically, I've done a whole series literally based on this one evening in 2017. And the particular evening, it didn't even kind of look like this. Um, but I basically, it was a beautiful evening, and I took these photographs, and as I tend to do, I went back to my studio and I was looking at them later. I think this was about 2020 that I actually started on this series. Was it 2020 or maybe 2019? And I spent 2 years on the first painting, um, which is not, well, yeah, which is quite usual for me. Often when I start a new series of works, they do take a long time. And I think I was just trying to figure out how to capture the ambience of that particular evening. And the painting was a lot more kind of definite, you could say. This is quite loosely painted now. But it took me sort of 2 years to get that sort of feeling that I really wanted of to capture that day. And I was pleased with the painting, and I exhibited it and I showed it over the years. And then I began to get asked to do commissions of it. And so I did sort of variations on it. And people kept asking me, and I kept doing these commissions on this one day. I've done other commissions in the meantime, but this particular painting, I don't know how many I've done, 12, 15, maybe more, I can't remember. And then I finally sold the original at London Art Fair in January this year. And I also sold one of their companion pieces. Um, so what I tend to do is when I do a commission, I tend to make two or three pieces at the same time. Mainly because when I'm making a commission, there's often lots of different ways I could go. And often, the client has a particular idea about what they would like. And then I might think, oh, it might be nice to do it like this or like that. And so the one that I sold it was actually incredibly popular at the fair. I didn't think it would be. So actually the variation was actually the first one to sell. That was most popular. And then the original sold later on. And then this one here and so basically the ones I sold at the art fair were both 6 foot paintings, 180 by 60. Um, and then this is a 4 foot one. So this is smaller, more manageable sort of size. But the same idea, the same theme essentially. And I'm very happy with it because it's got that sort of glow. I just love the glow of just that midsummer light. And for some reason, it's just this palette is really popular. The sort of the greens with the oranges and the sort of blues. I don't know. Yeah, it really resonates with people. I mean, it's funny. Sometimes people talk about how green is a difficult color. I mean, I don't find green at all difficult. I love painting greens. But then I grew up in rural Dorset. And so I didn't really have much choice. I had to just learn how to paint greens, and I love greens. But I also just love these beautiful glowing colors that you can get. This is obviously oil on canvas. I love what you can do with oil. So I essentially grew up. My father taught me to paint. I mean, he was a brilliant painter. Actually, he was a doctor, but he was also a brilliant artist. He was a brilliant watercolorist, and also a brilliant oil painter. And it was quite intimidating for me to think about it. So I was a young boy, and I used to go out and I used to paint, with him, and I knew that my work would be completely rubbish compared to his. I had a long time, a lot to learn. You could say, and so I always had to figure out a way to kind of make the painting work without relying on his kind of sort of accomplishment. So he sort of had this accomplishment of it was like he loved the British watercolor tradition. Cotman and Turner, and I can't really remember. But there's a very strong kind of British watercolor tradition, and he loved that, and I love them too. But I also was brought up with Cézanne and sort of abstract painting and modern art and contemporary art, Gerhard Richter and all this kind of stuff. So for me, although at that age I wasn't really aware of Gerhard Richter, when I was a boy I was more aware of Constable and Turner and Friedrich and the Romantic painters. But so I had to go out there and I had to somehow make a painting that was sort of honest and that captured something that I kind of felt, had a kind of compositional quality to it. And so I learned very early on to sort of find some theme to sort of catch on to. Maybe it was the tone of a distant wood, in the mist, and that, or a particular shape against another shape or something. I don't know. I mean, I guess my father was doing the same thing, but I was sort of doing it without his knowledge of, having learnt to paint, if you like, And so then I basically moved into oil plein air painting as a teenager, which I really loved. Again, just sitting out, trying to capture something in the moment. And it was actually that work that got me into art college. And I love painting like that. But I actually got a little bit frustrated with plein air painting because it very much relied on that particular time, whatever it was, 2 or 3 hours. And I kind of thought, well, actually there's so much more subtlety that could be captured that you can't really capture in 2 or 3 hours. And so these are very much studio paintings now. So it's still very important for you to go out, and these are based on a particular moment, and sketches and photography as well. And photography is actually very important to me now because it allows me to sort of remember a moment. And the paintings are like improvisations inspired by a moment and a photograph. And then often I'll go into Photoshop as well, and I'll exaggerate areas, or I'll remove areas, or I'll change the color or the tone. I'll just find a theme that I find interesting in a painting. Sometimes I don't need to. Sometimes just everything's right, the composition, everything. And it was in this particular case. This midsummer's evening was perfect. But I didn't know it at the time. I started painting it and people loved it. And it's great, So that's it. Anyway, I just thought I'd just have a quick little chat about this because it's still really one of my favourite series of paintings. And yeah, I've got this 4'1" on show in my gallery at the moment. So you're very welcome to come have a look at it. Yeah, I think I'll leave it there.